All right, we got a special guest today on 10-minute poker tips. You may recognize the two of us because we also do the LA Poker Roundup, but I got Ty Dobbertin,
Hey.
who is a WPT champ, and he is here today to tell us about how to bag a day one chip lead. So I'm excited to hear about this because that doesn't happen to me too often.
Yeah, that's right. I've been working hard to build my reputation as an LA Blaster, and I think that a lot of the folks around they think I'm pretty solid. I mean, people think I'm honestly, I think they think I'm better than I am, but I do like that they do still know I'm gambling with them, right? So I actually my friends that I do talk poker with a little bit. They always ask me this because they kind of skew more on the tighter side. I came up on a lot of the low stakes cash streets, and what you notice is a lot of the low stakes players that come into tournaments or the cash grinders that come into tournaments. They play really tight, and then when they learn about ICM or bubble pressure, they play even tighter, and they tend to, when they make the money, have very small stacks, and they just want to have more. And I have bagged probably three, if not four, top three chip stacks going into day twos in the last year around LA. So I just got a couple kind of simple tips, things to think about. The first tip is kind of like a base level thing. I'm not counting this as an official tip. This is tip zero. Number one, as always in poker tournaments, you have to study, you have to do something to get better at the game, right? If you don't know how to play a hand profitably, if you don't know how to play the game profitably, you can't win chips because you have to play well at some way. Now, you don't have to play perfect GTO. You don't have to play perfect. You don't have to know this guy's exact game plan perfectly, but you just have to keep getting better and be able to play a hand well, right? A position well, a situation well. Tip one, and this is kind of like the overarching theme, the thing that really keeps people from having and being able to build big stacks is really its fear. The fear of busting, the fear of not cashing, the fear of being the bubble. You have to get rid of that, right? And now when I say you have to get rid of that, it's not like a big mental leap. What I'm really saying is when you're playing a hand, especially now we're talking about building a big day one chip stack. So we're not talking about ICM really. Obviously, when you get really in depth, ICM is everywhere. But we're talking about there's still rebuy. We're still in the day one. We haven't cashed yet. So we're talking about if that starts thinking, I don't want to bust. Oh, I'm in this tournament. I've only got this much time. Just play your hands the way that you've been learning. If you know how to play a hand profitably, do that. Do not suddenly think, oh my goodness, somebody raised and I have aces and I don't want to bust right now. I'm going all in for, 60 times the raise. Don't do that. That is why you can't build a big stack. If you can't win a lot of chips when you get aces, how are you going to build a big stack? That is one of your most profitable hands that you can get dealt. Same thing with like ace king. Don't freak out and just jam for your entire stack. Every now and then they'll have queens and they'll call like I did the other day and you'll win. But it's not a great way to build a stack. Play your hands the way you've learned. And the better you do tip zero and learn and play better, the more profitable these hands will be, right? Part of that means you have to go in with a mindset where, especially if it's a re-entry tournament, you have to go in the mindset of like, I'm okay with firing multiple bullets. If it's a freeze out, I'm okay with busting. Now, one of the common kind of misconceptions about this mindset is that if you're playing wild, you're playing crazy, you're just going to fire a ton of bullets, it's going to make you bust so much more often. And I 100% dispute that. I think that if you play this way, this is the correct way. This is much closer to the correct way. And you will bag a higher percentage of the time than you would playing scared, so to speak. If you have the money to re-enter and you're going to re-enter in the same day, I do agree. This will, on average, get you to buy more bullets because you will be in more situations where you could bust. You could be 30% to bust. You could be 50% to bust. But if you, say, had a hard cap at 20 bullets, either style, I think you're going to bag more often and bigger playing this way because it's the right way. You're playing your hands the way that you think they should be played correctly. So you may fire more bullets. There's no one saying you have to if you want to stick to one bullet per game. And that is, it is difficult when you're trying to put this time commitment in and you say, if I bust now, that's my whole day. I wanted to play a long time today. And, I'm sorry, but if your goal is to win and do as well as you can't worry about how long you're going to play on a particular bullet. That's just something you kind of have to balance. That's tip number one, right? Don't play afraid. Play well, play to win chips. Don't play to not bust, play to win as many chips as you can. And a lot of times that means you're playing to win 200,000 chips 70% of the time, and 30% of the time you're out, as opposed to winning 30,000 chips 95% of the time. Tip number two, fight for pots. So especially if you came from those tight, low limit cash games or the easy, soft cash games where no one's ever bluffing. And if you bet and if they call, they've always got it. You've got to get over that. You only have so much time. As the blinds get bigger, the pots get more valuable. You have to fight for pots. And people are all the time telling you they're not really interested in this pot. You need to learn to be more aggressive and fight for every pot that they are willing to give you. You have to learn how to figure out when that pot's available. You have to learn to figure out who the right people are to push bets. But you need to be more aggressive, much more aggressive than you're used to being in a lower stakes cash game, or if you're moving up to a bigger tournament. You're not going to be able to accumulate because all of those chips that are just sitting out there for anybody, if you never win any of them, stack's just going to go down, 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 down. And when you double, you'll just barely be getting back to your starting stack. So that you cannot build a big stack if all you do is lose until you get a premium, win back up to even, lose until you get a premium, go back up to even, lose until you get a premium, get your premium cracked, complain to your friends like Derek does in the group chat, and then you're out. You got to go down fighting. Tip 3. Max exploit. In the tournaments we're playing, they're mid stakes, low stakes. We're not playing in high rollers. We're not playing in like Poker Go Studio 10Ks here. There's a lot of people out there playing. They all have big, huge leaks. Now, the ones you want to look for are the ones who are looking to have a really good time gambling. We call them blasters. Sometimes you call them punters, but we're looking for people who don't want to fold. We're looking for people who, if they have aces, it doesn't matter what happens, they're not folding. We're looking for people when they river 2 pair, it doesn't matter if there's 4 to a straight and a flush out there, they are not folding to you. And if you can make it, especially so that they're not folding to you, that's even better, but I'm not going to cover that. In the beginning, those are the people you want to look for. Look around your table, try and find the action, right? Figure out if they're really the action, especially watch those hands, see what they're calling other people with, see how big the bets are. A lot of people, you bet small because you want to get paid. Same as you don't want to bust, you want to make sure they call. When you find these people and you get the hand, blast the pot, okay? When you have it, you need to win all the chips. You don't get a chip lead. You don't have the number one stack by just getting a couple extra blinds out of people. Who cares if you win 10K? You could win 10K every time. Who cares if you bet 100K and they call you half the time? That's amazing. You just won 50K overall instead of 10K. Identify the people that can't let go of that hand. Blast it. Get all the chips, all right? Crack them. Identify who you're cracking. Go after them. Call. Just go get the money. Later in the tournament, as you're getting near the bubble, especially if you've been successful and you have a stack, now you want to switch. You want to identify the people. You still know those people. Now you really want to look for the people who do not want to bust. You want to look for all the folks who are playing the way you used to play, and you want to apply a little bit more pressure than you're used to. You got to go back to tip 2 and come after them that way. So exploit. If everyone's playing really well and they're hard to exploit, you can't get a lot of chips off them. So kind of ignore them. Play good against them. Just play safe even if there's a bunch of other spots that you can exploit. Look for people where you know how to take their chips and just be aggressive, be relentless.
Everything is actually quite interconnected. So if you're listening to what Ty is saying, there is like a framework here. If you actually play too tight, if you start blasting huge in the pots, people are actually just going to fold to you because they think you always have it. You kind of have to see this almost persona that Ty is presenting to you. You have to play with no fear. You have to go after pots, and you have to be not thinking about the downside, but be always thinking about the upside, because you have to get those podium finishes, and you need a big stack to get podium finishes. You're doing all that and you're playing that type of style, then actually when you start blasting into rivers, 150% pot, people are going to have to call you off sometimes because you're not always going to have it.
And that's a great way to try and change your mindset. Like you said, just change the way you're thinking. Stop thinking about they might have it, they could call, they might see that I'm bluffing, and start thinking about they're going to fold most of the time, I'm going to win that pot. Don't stop thinking they might fold if I bet too big. Think that they probably have top. They're going to call no matter what. I'm double 2x pot on the river. They won't know if you just think it's a pot that you can steal or if you have it, right? You are confident in your decision either way. It's going to look the same. Tip number 4, right? And this one sometimes can be hard for me too. Once you succeed and you actually have a big stack, a lot of people say to get a big stack, you have to gamble. Sort of true. If you've listened, I haven't really told you to gamble, right? I've told you to play well. And sometimes that can involve gambling, but we aren't gambling in that I know I'm behind, I'm going to just gamble, right? We're trying to play well and win the chips. Once you have a big stack, you still don't have to gamble. Not a requirement to build your stack. You do need to protect your stack. You have the freedom to do some more things than you did before. In particular, when you know who's going to pay you off, who's going to punt to you and continue to blast because they can't fold, you can call them in position with so much stuff. You can call them in position with almost anything, assuming you're not going to get jammed on from behind, right? So you can start to do other things, but you're not here trying to risk your stack to gamble and get that big chip lead. You end up with a big chip lead by playing well. You don't gamble to get it specifically. So you have to protect the stack. You do have a freedom to take some flips against the shorter stacks, but we're not looking to take flips by calling, okay? If you're going to take a flip against a shorter stack, be the one going all in. apply the pressure, all right? Because that gives you two ways to win the pot. It can be ahead, they can fold, and then you can get lucky if it doesn't happen. And since you have the big stack, you have that cushion. And that goes along with why I say I absolutely refute that playing this way will make you cash less often. In fact, I think you cash more often. Say someone who doesn't want to do that, people will fold ace king early or late, or, times it doesn't seem appropriate, right? Most of the time, mid tournament, later tournament, mostly going to be playing ace king for flips. Say you avoid the flip and you're a cautious player. I got to make sure I cash. I avoid the flip. I'm not going to do it. I don't want to jam. He might call and he might have aces. Okay, so say you had like 30 big blind stack. You still have a 30 big blind stack. Let's say I jam instead. Calls, he has jacks. 50% of the time you lose. Okay, you're out. Who cares? Awesome. I have 65 big blinds. All right. In both cases, let's go forwards. The blinds go up. Now this guy's got 20 big blinds. I've got 45. No hands get dealt. Don't really have anything. Blinds go up again. Now this guy has 15 big blinds, 12 big blinds. Now this guy's got 30. We get to 12 big blinds, 18 people away from the money still. You can't get there yet. Guy with 12 big blinds, everyone folds to him, or like the button opens on his small blind, he gets dealt pocket sixes. That guy's going all in, right? That's the right play. You're out 50% of the time right there. You just waited a lot longer. Guy with 30 big blinds, he's got options. He can 3-bet. I mean, hell, if he really cares and he really wants to cash, he can fold and he's still going to cash. If he wants to raise, if he wants to jam, that guy's much more likely to fold if he jams 30 than 12. So he's not flipping. And if he wants to just flat and fold if the big blind jams, he can do that. You can't do that off of 12 big blinds. You have so much more you can do the 50% of the time you survive. Whereas if you folded, you're forced to flip at that spot. 100% of the time you're flipping. You're forced to with that worse hand, right? Or maybe you've got queen jack suited and you have to jam and you're praying they fold and they don't. You have so many fewer options. Say it's the reverse. Say there's another 12 big blind stack and the two of you get in flip. The 30 big blind stack survives losing that. You don't. So it's the same thing. You've just pushed your flip later on and you have fewer options. That is really why I think it's just a total coping mechanism, right? It's like a total misrepresentation of playing tighter, not taking those risks to let you bag so much more often. I don't think so. Only if you're on the stone bubble. If you're not on the stone bubble or two away from the stone bubble, it really doesn't.
And the gambling part is important because very often you see, especially in LA, like these blasters who play extremely irresponsibly, just bloat huge pots and just gambling and playing all these crazy hands and showing you all these bluffs. Yeah, they're kind of hard to play against. And yeah, they sometimes sit there with piles, but you don't see them at final tables that often. So that consistency comes with some amount of like understanding the art of like protecting your stack.
We're not playing to get the chip lead. Sometimes it just happens. I think it is important to have a sort of general milestones in your head. Like, oh, I know that like the average at the end of the day will be this much. Oh, I know that the average around the bubble will be this much. Having some ideas in your head, but I would not. So to parallel with a cash game fallacy, right? It's like, don't be like, oh, I've got $999. I'll leave when I hit 1,000, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Don't be like, oh, I got a good stat. I'm at 850K. I'm just gonna get to 1 million today. Don't just play your hands, right?
Yep.
Just play your hands.
This was awesome, Ty. Thank you so much. I think the poker community is going to greatly appreciate because it does seem a little bit like magic sometimes when you're just bobbing and weaving and somehow just accumulating all these chips but not punting them all away unless you get bad beat. So there is absolutely an art to this. You know, Ty is also not like a solver guy, right? He's very much an exploitative guy, but all the stuff that he described really is like the art of poker.
Absolutely. Get out there and have fun with it, man.